Hi, I'm Scott. I design, build, and repair woodworking pieces. I'm opening up the doors to my shop to help you become a better woodworker. Have you ever wondered how to cut curves in wood? I'm going to show you how. But first, let me show you why I add curves to the pieces I build. I think it adds more elegance than what you can get with straight lines. Here's an example of two bookshelves that I've built. One has curves in the base molding, and one doesn't have curves. As you can see, there's quite a difference in character between these bookshelves. I'm also adding a tool cabinet to this wall. Originally I designed it around the function of storing tools, but I decided to add a little bit of style to it, so I'm going to be adding some curves to that as well. Here's a design that I'm going with a nice long curve across the top. I'm also putting curved shelving in the front here. But one of my previous designs was this, and you can see with that straight line at the top, that valance, what a difference it makes putting a curve in it. Before I get out some tools and show you how to cut curves, let's first talk about the types of curves and how to lay them out. I'm guessing you're familiar with how to use a compass, basically drawing a circle with a point. You can do this with small circles. If you don't have a compass, you can also grab round things from your shop and use those for tracing a circle. If you want something a little bit larger, you can also improvise. This is a scrap piece of lumber, and I've just driven a finishing nail in the end. This allows me to put down the point, and then I can draw a radius. It's just a matter of moving the pencil along to get a longer or shorter radius. To draw an oval or ellipse, you just need two nails driven in, and I've got a scrap piece here. What you do is loop the string around one end, and then figure out where you want that edge of the oval to line up. So here is where I'm looking. I'm just going to fold that in half, tie that in a knot, and then loop it on here. So what I do then is take a pencil, put it on the inside of that line, and trace around. Get on the other side of the nail, finish tracing it. And on the other side of this nail, and there you've got an ellipse. If you want this narrower, you just need to shorten up that string. Here, I'll just temporarily do that. If you want it more like a circle, bring these nails in closer and you get more of a round shape. If you're looking for more freeform curves, you can buy a French curve set with different size pieces in it. These are curves that have been proven to be very pleasing to the eye. You can always draw something by hand, but this gives you a good advantage of something that's previously been proven. Just a matter of tracing it out. Here's an example of a template that I've made that uses multiple parts. So this was a circle that I had here, another small circle here. This would have been just a free-form curve that came out here. I would have used something round like this to create the circle at the bottom, another round over here, and then just sort of drawing that line together to give it a nice free-flowing look. A template like this allows you to work out all the details and then get ready for the cutting stage. When I make smaller templates, such as this template here for a miniature gingerbread piece I did for a small bed, this is a spot where I use standard size dimensions. Here I've got a 1 1/4 inch hole because I've got a hole saw that I can cut that out. So design is one element, cutting it out is another. Designing it in a way that I have tools that will cut this certainly helped me out. So this is a 1 1/4 inch hole saw. This radius here is from a 2 inch hole saw. So that allows me to use a standard tool to get these nice curves, and then I can cut the rest by hand. Now that you understand how to lay out curves, let's talk about how to cut them. I use different processes depending on the type of project I'm working on. So I'm going to cover off cutting small curves, cutting large curves, and then cutting curves in a way that you've got a repeatable process to make the same parts over and over again. To cut out small parts, I start by using my drill. That's my go-to tool for small curves. So I can use a traditional drill bit, or I can use something like a Forstner bit, which gives nice smooth holes. Forstner bits let me get larger holes than I can with a twist bit. I also use hole saws. Standard size hole saws go in your drill, allow you to drill a perfect hole. So it's great for getting those curved parts. Where you're dealing with something like an oval or parts that you can't cut with a drill, I use a coping saw if I'm cutting something by hand, or I use a jigsaw for where I want more power and more speed. If you're working with really fine work, you could use something like a fret saw by hand or a scroll saw as a power tool. I'll show you an example of cutting out small curves. This was a chair repair where I had a broken backsplat and I had to replace. I sourced material that was the same thickness and species as the back, and then I traced it out. To cut out these outside edges, that's fairly simple. To cut out these insides, this comes out, this comes out, this comes out, and that comes out. I need to drill a hole so I can get my saw in there. Next, I get out my drum sanding set to use on the drill press. As you can see, when I traced out this piece, I left a little bit of extra space just around that line, and what I'm going to use is the drum sander to bring that right to the line and give me that edge that I'm looking for to match the existing piece. When I get to these small areas here, the drum sander doesn't get in there. So what I use is a nail and a piece of tape to get the tape started here. And what I do is I tape on a piece of sandpaper and let that roll around there. And now I have a piece of sandpaper that I can put inside the drill press. The drum sander isn't great at making straight lines, so there's a bit of variation in here. So what I've done is I've just taken a small scrap piece of plywood and wrapped some sandpaper around it and just go across it this way. And after about 30 passes, I get a fairly straight line here. I'm going to round the edges, so it doesn't need to be dead perfect, but I just want to get it a little straighter than it is right now. And here's the new backsplat, all ready for the finish. The tools I use for cutting out large curved parts really depends on the part that I'm cutting. If I'm not dealing with a radius, what I'll do is usually use my bandsaw, or where I can't do that, I'll use my jigsaw to cut it out. Where I'm dealing with a radius, what I'll do is take my large router and mount it into a base. And that base I will then fix to a certain point to give me the right radius. I'm about to do that right now with this tool cabinet I'm building, where I have a light balance and the top here has a radius of 11 feet. In order to cut a long radius with a router, what I use is this router jig, which is really just a base plate that goes on the router, and then I can mount on an arm as long as I need with a pivot point at the end. In this case, I need an 11-foot radius, so I've got a few pieces strung together here to form the arm, and I'm about to put the router on here. I'm going to be cutting this with a 1/4 inch spiral bit, and that just gives me a nice clean cut on the piece of wood. Here I've measured out my router to 11 feet to the cutter head, and all I need to do now is screw it down to the pole so I lock in my 11 feet for the radius. I'm happy with the radius I have now, and I cut it out on scrap wood for 2 reasons. One is if I make a mistake, I'm not wasting good material, and the other is I don't always get a clean cut here. This one's worked out well, and now what I'm going to do is use a template guide to cut out the piece on the hardwood. I start by tracing out the profile on the piece, and then cutting out the majority of the waste on the bandsaw. This makes the cutting much easier for the router bit. And this nice smooth finish is where that template bit really pays off. Using a template like this can help you make repeatable parts. I've got a section here on the cabinet that I'm building where I'm building curved drawer fronts. And here in the drawer gallery, I need to make sure my dividers have the same radius on the front of them. So I'm going to use a template to go through and make sure I can cut all those and get them all set up so I've got my curved parts ready for this cabinet. Here you see the top of the valance and the curve that's cut there. It's all ready to go. And with the shelves, we've got 2 dividers below that. And the curve on these is exactly the same, which is important because the front of those drawers need to be matching. That way, all the drawers will match up when they're built. I'm going to show you one more example of a piece with a curve in it. This is a fireplace we recently finished a video on, and you can see how it adds to the elegant design. Before I sign off though, I'd like to remind you, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. You'll be notified when the next video comes out. If you'd like to give us a thumbs up rating, it'll help others find out more about woodworking. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your time in the woodshop.